All right, morning, men.
Morning.
I'd first like to thank I had them by name, but since I'm not supposed to say it, I'll thank the Kepha guys first for asking me to be a part of this conference. I pick one or two a year, usually they're closer to San Diego, but the Holy Spirit wanted me here, and I think it's very clear in the gathering that's here, that the Holy Spirit's here, Jesus is here, and I know I was supposed to be here. You know, men's conferences to me are, when you get here and get gathered, it's a lot like a locker room. You know, we're on the same team. We're on God's team. And, you know, I've never met, other than a few guys I've met just in the last 15 minutes, I've never met a one of you sitting out there, but I love you. And there's something special when you have the faith in common and when you're on the same team, that you're brothers. And there's nothing like it. You know, before I get going, I'm not a professional speaker. But I am a professional football player. So if I get to fumbling around and rambling, and if any of you have ever seen me do interviews, I get to talking and rambling all over the place, so y'all just hang with me. And, first, also, everything that I share are my faith experiences, kind of my journey, but any one of you could be sharing as well. I don't have all the answers. I don't have it all figured out, but hopefully there's something there that can encourage you, and I know throughout the day I'll be encouraged. I always feel great growth when I'm a part of these conferences. I want to share a Latin phrase with you that's very dear to me, that a priest back in San Diego shared with me and my family, and it's been very dear to me. It's Nunc Chepi. Now, it's a Latin phrase. I say it the Alabama way. Okay. So Nunc Chepi, N-U-N-C-C-O-E-P-I, and it means now I begin. And I know for me, I'm sharing this with y'all, that I've kind of hit a little lull in Lent. You know, we're kind of at that, halfway mark. We got a few weeks to push to go to Easter, and I've kind of hit a little lull. You know, you always start off and you're rolling with your daily prayers, and you're rolling, and then you hit a little lull. I know I've hit that lull. So I'm excited about beginning again. And that's what Nunc Chepi is. It's now I begin, but it's never ending. It's again and again and again. So wherever you are in your faith journey today, Nunc Chepi. You know, wherever you are, even if you're living your faith to the best you've ever lived it, Nunc Chepi. Whether hadn't been to confession in a long time, well, today's your day. Today's your day to begin. And no matter what path we've been on, the ups and downs we've had, God and His mercy is there for us, and Nunc Chepi is always applicable. You know, as men, we're called to lead. We're called to lead. We have that togetherness, that camaraderie, that bond of brothers that I spoke about, and we're called to lead. That's my favorite part of the game. Favorite part of football, I guess, is being able to lead. Favorite part of playing quarterback is leading. I feel like that's my most important job before I throw any pass. And, that is our job as men, is to lead. I'm going to move sideways just a little bit and share kind of a locker room story, football story with you. It was 7 or 8 years ago, and we're in the meeting room, and we're watching practice film, and Norv Turner was then the coach. So this was probably 08, maybe 09. And we had LaDainian Tomlinson, we had Darren Sproles. We had both of those guys. And we're in the meeting room, and Norv he always went through the practice tape, and he's coaching up the plays. Coaching up each play and, what we should have done better and this or that. And so there's this running back running a certain route, and Norv is really getting on him. I don't know how many times I got to tell you, LT, Darren, I don't know how many times I got to tell you, quit running a route like this. You got to get 2 more steps. You got to, you get the gist, on and on and on. And finally, Darren Sproles said, he stopped him and said, "Coach, that's not me. That's LT." And there was a pause in the room, and then Norv said, "Great route, LT." I mentioned we're called to be leaders. We have the greatest example of a leader of all time in Jesus Christ. And then we have the apostles, St. Peter, our first pope, our Pope Francis today, and the cardinals and the bishops and the priests and the religious sisters and the deacons. And we fall in line as lay men in the faith. We have a role as leaders in our church. And you know, we all have our role. Just like I mentioned, we're on a team. We all have different roles. And, you know, God only gives us what we can handle, and He knows what we can get, what we can attain, and what we're all of our cups. If you filled all of our cups to the top, they would all be different size cups full. You know, the fullness, to live the fullness is different for all of us, but we all have our role. I grew up in North Alabama, and being Catholic in the South, at least at that point in the early 80s or mid 80s, to say the least, was a big minority. It's not as much now. I was an altar boy. I loved being that close to the celebration of the Eucharist. I loved being that close to the Mass and being a part of it. There was oftentimes I wasn't even on the schedule, but I would go get dressed and hope that the other little guys didn't show up. My confirmation class there in Athens, Alabama, when I was 15 years old, was a group of about 25. And there was only one Catholic church in the county, and that was all of the confirmed that year. So there's certainly a small group of us. And I went to college at NC State in Raleigh. It was about 10 hours from home. And, you know, when you go to college, that's when the faith for me really became my own. You know, I was at home, you know, mom and dad direct you. But when you're in college, you can do what you want. And that's really when it became my own for me. And I think of the many things I was taught by my parents about the faith growing up, the number one thing that was instilled in me, instilled and driven home, was never miss Mass. You never miss Mass. And so I get to college, you know, and there's my first Sunday by myself, and there was no way I was going to miss. And, you know, there's some lonely early morning drives downtown to church, to Mass, you know, while my teammates slept in. But that was driven home, to never miss. And so I was there 4 years, and then I went to San Diego, and that was a long way from home. NC State was far enough, and then going almost into the Pacific was like another country to me. But I get there, and they draft us on Saturday. You flew right out. So I get there on Sunday, and I'm talking to a guy I've never met, you know, in San Diego, and his name's John Hennick, and I say, John, I get there Saturday night late, so I'm going to be there Sunday morning. And I said, without a car, without anything. And I said, John, I got to get to Mass in the morning before wherever we got to go. And he said, perfect. I'll pick you up at 6:45. I'm going to the 7 a.m. So there's a guy I'd never met, and he was on his way to Mass at 7 a.m. There at the Mission Church, right near the stadium. And I was so far from home, but I was at home. And the many gifts and intricacies of our faith, you know, there's so many things we have that are beautiful, but the oneness, the universal, the oneness, the Catholic, the one Catholic Holy Apostolic Church, the oneness of it, that wherever we are, we're at home. And Raleigh, Grand Rapids, San Diego, wherever you go, and you go to Mass, there's nothing like it to me, because you're home, wherever you are. My wife and I, Tiffany, got married when I was at NC State. She was a convert. She was a Southern Baptist trying to convert me, and I was a Catholic trying to convert her. And I don't say that I won by any means. God brought her, and the Holy Spirit led her to the fullness of the truth. And she came into the church actually the day before we got married fully. So it was an awesome weekend. We'll have been married 14 years this May, and we have 7 children. We have 7 children, and not a ton of people know this yet, and it's still early on. But our eighth is on the way. So. That just leads right into the next topic of NFP. I don't know if that means we're good or bad at it. No, every child is awesome. It's such a blessing, and for us, speaking of NFP, it really for us married. I was 19, she was 18, or 20 and 19, somewhere right in there, and for us it was just about obedience. No, I didn't really know. I was like, I didn't know what are you talking about? What's that? But it was just obedience. It's a teaching of the church, and we're best friends. Tiffany and I are best friends, and that's how our relationship started. It was built on our Christian faith and eventually our Catholic faith. And, being best friends, we have that cycle of courtship and honeymoon in our marriage. And, there's many ways to love, through our children, prayer time together. It's hard these days, but if you can find a TV show worth watching, conversations, there's so many ways to love, and it keeps the courtship and honeymoon in your marriage. But when there's no tension in that part of your marriage, there's no tension, and you have the teamwork and the sexual part of your relationship, with that area solid, it's easier to resolve issues in many other areas, whether it be finances, raising your children, in-law strategies. All those things are easier. But what wives do, wives, and many of you can attest to this, they appreciate that their husbands sacrifice pleasure and exhibit self-control for these mutually agreed values in this self-centered culture. And it really is. It's whatever you want, when you want it. Do what you want. If you feel like it, if it feels right, and there's just no discipline. There's no discipline. So I encourage all of you, I'm sure many of you do, but I just encourage you to really embrace that. And really for us, it's just been such a blessing in our marriage, and it really started with obedience. It was not nothing more than that. I think when you obey God, you are rewarded, and we have been blessed with 7, soon to be 8 children. Being a dad's awesome, and many of you know I don't have teenagers yet. My oldest is 12. She'll be 13 soon, but many of you that have raised and have children that are grown. I'm sure maybe some dads and sons are here that are grown. There's a dad, and his son was 16. I was telling you a story. His dad and his son was about 16, and he kept asking his dad, when can I drive the truck? Dad, I want to drive your truck. And he said, son, you can drive the truck when you do 3 things. You got to get your grades cleaned up. You got to I want to see you reading the Bible more, and you got to get a haircut. And he said, and so he left. And about a month later, his son came back and said, Dad, I'm ready. I'm ready to drive the truck. And he said, well, yeah, son, I can see you've gotten your grades cleaned up, and you've been reading the Bible. I've seen you doing that a lot, but your hair's, you hadn't cut your hair. And he said, yeah, Dad, all the reading I've been doing, Moses had long hair, Abraham, even Jesus had long hair. And he said, son, you're right. And they walked everywhere they went. But being a dad's awesome. I come home from a long road trip, whether we win or lose or whatever's happened on a road game, I come home and I pull in that driveway gate, and there's bicycles and sidewalk chalk and scooters and stuff everywhere. And whatever's happened, I know everything's going to be all right. and they love me for being dad and husband. And so, however good I've played good or bad, they come running out the door and are excited that I'm home, and that never gets old. That never gets old. It is getting tougher to have a bad game because they are growing up, and my oldest son's 7, and this was about a year ago. I threw an awful interception against Tampa Bay a few years ago, and it was terrible. And I get home, and I said, "Gosh, we were coming back. We had a chance. We're just kind of talking about it. I mean, he's into football." And he said, "Yeah, Dad, why did you throw it right to that guy?" Believe me, son, I did not want to. But I think we all can attest as dads that our children want our time. They want our time, and that's the thing I've found from raising 3 little girls early. My 3 oldest are girls, that it was often hard sometimes to embrace the Barbie dolls and the Polly Pockets and all those things, but you found a way to fake it and enjoy it. As far as those things, you enjoyed the time with them, but some of those things that you're playing house and pretending to be, Mike and their, another name, all those things, but they want our time. They want us to be with them, and that was one thing that my mom and dad, every youth game, everything I ever did, they were always there. They were always a part of it. I don't know how many times I asked my parents when I was little, I would go dress up in some uniform, basketball or baseball or whatever, come into the kitchen and say, "Dad, introduce me. I'm number 15 or such, introduce me, call me out." And I'd come running out and then go play for a half hour and come back in and tell him the made-up halftime score. We're up by 2. But they want our time. But more importantly than that is raising them in the faith. And for Tiffany and I, it's raising them to know, love, and serve God. And as dads, we're the head. We're the head of the household, and our wives are the heart. And, I know many of you can relate to that, and of maybe playing catch in the yard, and your little guy takes one in the stomach or takes one off the chin, and our first thing is, "Hop up, you're all right." And our wives are like, "Oh, that hurt." So you can attest to that in many ways, that we're the head and our wives are the heart. But, our role and our job is to get to heaven and to take as many people with us as possible. And it starts with ourselves first, but then our family. And for those of you that have little children, young ones, mine range from 12 to 1, they take a lot. They see everything, and you can really ingrain a lot on them at a young age. And so it's important that they're at Mass when they're young, that they sit. We try to sit as close as we can, just even though they don't know what's going on yet. You sit as close as we can, because children are very visual, and you sit as close as you can at Mass. And I just know that dads, if the dad says, if any of you here that hadn't been to Mass in a long time, it's time to go back. And if the dad says, "Let's go, we're going to Mass in an hour," then that car will be full. But if it's the mom that's harping and nagging and this and that, then, Mom, Dad didn't say we have, the dad has got to lead the show at the house. And the dad says, "Let's go." Every one of them in that house will be in the car to go to Mass on Sundays. And that's what we're called to do, is to lead our family. And I encourage you to have family prayer if you don't already. I know, like I mentioned, I've hit a little lull in Lent. We've been a little off this last week, and I'm challenging myself and you guys to bear down and not let it slip away. It gets to 7 o'clock and you don't really feel, gather them all up. Gather them all up and pray a decade of the rosary. Pray the whole rosary if your crew's old enough to handle it. Pray some intentions, for grandparents, for aunts and uncles, for the priest. That part of the day is really awesome for us. And I mentioned different things we've done. We've had like a big prayer jar, like a big jar where you put the intentions in, and children enjoy that. Writing names down to put in there, and you draw one out and, place it. We have the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the picture that's up. You light a candle. All those things are very, our children are very visual, and they hang on to all those things. I mentioned our family, leading our family. We also have a role in our workplace. And I mentioned our role is different. Some is to, defend the faith every day. Some of you probably have to where you are at work. Others, maybe it's just being pro-life and having a big family, or being open to a big family. For others, whatever it is, it's not always having to be speaking, spreading the faith. Sometimes it's just living it out, that you never know what type of example you're given to who's there with you, your coworkers. And if you haven't started or done family prayer, Untitled Chapter, now you begin right now. It's not too late. It's not too late in Lent to bear down on a sacrifice or what it is you may want to give up. It's not too late. Start right now. My wife always refers to me and my oldest son as Mary's boys. My birthday is December 8th, Feast of the Immaculate Conception, and Gunnar, our oldest son, his birthday is on February 11th, Our Lady of Lourdes. So Tiff always says we're Mary's boys. My oldest son's name is Gunnar, and that's my mom's maiden name. So that's the reason it's Gunnar. But if he can throw a football or shoot a basketball, then that'll be all right with me. At our house, we have a great time. My children really love football, and on Monday nights is kind of our night. We have family night and watch the Monday night game, and they all ask, Dad, who are we for? So if it's the Packers and the Vikings, and they say, who you for? I go, I don't know. They're in the NFC, and it doesn't really matter that much. I'm sure there's some Packers and Viking fans here, but I go, I don't really care that much. And then they say, well, Dad, who you for tonight? It's the Raiders and the Broncos. And I go, well, I hope they both lose. But we have a great time together with the Monday night and watching the games and just enjoying being around each other. But faith, it's always titled the talk, Faith, Family, and Football, and they're in that order, but they're also very intertwined, and they all relate. And of the many things I like about the game of football, the teamwork, the camaraderie, the game itself, I think how it relates to life and how it relates to, the correlations in our faith, I think that's really what's my favorite thing about it, and why it's such an awesome game to me. It's more than a game. You think about your faith, family, and for me it's football. But think about your faith, family, and whatever that passion is for you, or in your workplace. Think about some of these traits and characteristics that, I know they apply to all three of them. The discipline in your family, the discipline in your faith, the discipline at work, the discipline at football, the sacrifice that it takes. You have to be able to sacrifice in your family. You sacrifice in our faith, in football, the adversity that you go through, the teamwork, the commitment, the toughness. You got to be tough. You got to be tough to lead a family. You got to be tough to be a Catholic man. You got to be tough to be a leader in the workplace, to be a leader in the football field, or wherever that is for you. You got to be unselfish. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to live a faithful, faith-filled family life and to be successful in our workplace. It's a challenge, but you know what? Nothing worth anything is easy. Nothing worth anything is easy, and it's supposed to be hard. You think about the lives of the saints. You read a saint of the day, or some of you have your favorite saints, I know, and or your patron saints, or gosh, it wasn't easy. You read those stories. Goodness gracious. The lives of the saints, it wasn't easy, and it's not going to be easy. And I feel like we need to strive to be saints in this room, and it's not easy, but God has us here for a reason, and in this time period for a reason. Who knows what's coming? There's lots of adversity in the world and in our church and against our church, and we got to stand up and be strong, and it's not easy. Saint Sebastian is the patron saint for athletes, and he was a soldier in the year 280. And I don't know if any of you know the story. I'm briefing you. He shot with arrows and left for dead, and then he overcame it. And another means was used to kill him, and he gave his life to the Lord. So he was a soldier and spreading the faith. So he is a patron saint for athletes, and I like to think that me and Saint Sebastian are pretty tight. There's lots of prayers to Saint Sebastian and asking for his prayers. I was going to share a story from 2008, 2007 football season, 2008 playoffs, and I think we all have a time where we felt the grace of God. We've really felt the Holy Spirit in a way that maybe we never have before. We probably all have a time when, gosh, it was just an experience, or that you felt close to God. And this time for me was the closest for me ever. And I was playing in Indianapolis in the division round of the playoffs, 2008, so 2007 season. And I was dropping back to pass and just felt pop in my knee. I mean, any of you that had a knee injury, you almost think you can hear it, what it sounds like. So knee goes, and we're flying home, and I'm thinking, gosh, doctors already think you've torn your ACL. What are you going to do? And I don't know what you can do about it, this and that. And I'm thinking on mine, gosh, now we're going to the AFC Championship to play the Patriots. We're this close to the Super Bowl, and I'm not going to be able to play. So I was so distraught, and it was so hard. So I remember driving home literally in tears and calling my mom and going, Mom, what, I can't, I've torn my ACL. I can't play this whole thing. And what am I going to do? The doctor says I can take some of the meniscus out because I'd torn it too. But that's only 7 days from the game. You don't have a good chance to play. So anyway, we decided to get the meniscus taken out, clean out the ACL, don't repair it, but just clean it out. This is on Monday. So we do that. I'm I'm on crutches and whatever Monday, and I'm crying and calling my mom going, this is all, what am I going to, I just remember being so upset. Tiffany's trying to help me through it. And my mom says, well, I believe you're going to be able to play. And I really am. I still get emotional about it. I remember thinking, I'm telling you, I can't play. And she said, but St. Sebastian's feast day is on Sunday, coming up, January 20th. And that's the day of the game. And so I immediately thought, well, I'll be able to play. and so it was that struggle back and forth. So I literally slept in one of those machines. Any of you that have the energies, that bend your knee back and forth. And I'm doing all this stuff all week. Physically to rehab, doing all I can. And then spiritually, my wife is putting holy oil all over my knee all week long. and it was very real though, the prayers and the believing that with God's help and Saint Sebastian, I can play in this game. So anyway, it's a long week, but I get to Sunday and there I am. And I played the game with little to no pain. And it was a little bit unstable, and I ended up having to give knee surgery after. But it was an amazing experience. And we didn't win the game, and it was emotional the whole week. But I think just believing, our faith, you got to believe first. And having that faith, and I know for me, will be an everlasting imprint on just God's power and the power of the saints and the prayer, that they're there for us, and we have to call on them. There's so many highs and lows in our game, I know in all of our lives, but in football, there's so many ups and downs. So many that it's like a roller coaster. You have good years, bad years. You have good games and bad games, and I know that moment for me was tough. I had another tough moment in Kansas City years back, fumbling a snap, late in the game. A fumble a snap that cost us the game. We're fixing to kick a field goal to win, and we fumble the snap. And for me, all those things are so hard to handle. But I kept going to, this is a little excerpt from the Imitations of Christ, a little red book, and it was in a different book, so I'm not sure exactly where to direct you to find it. But it said this, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but whatever speaking of God, whatever God allows to happen to us, to befall upon us, it ought to be acceptable because he does it for our salvation. And, whether good or bad. And for me, I read that a million times. You know, I'm like, why, some of these things that have happened in my profession that are in the spotlight, you know, why? But all of those things have grown me closer to God, and I know they're for greater importance than just a football game. Speaking of, you know, he talked about this being a pep rally, and I love that. I love that it's a pep rally. I love pep rallies, and you know, but with that, we can be all excited and all positive, but as we know, there's adversity. There's adversity in everything. And, you know, we talk about it in the football world of, you know, amongst teammates is when you face adversity, is it going to bring the best out in you, or is it going to bring the worst out in you? And, you know, think about that. I mean, we're all on a team, right? I mean, when it gets going tough, is this group going to scatter, or is these guys going to start? Or is that going to bring the best out in you? Is that going to really get you going? Because that's when you find out what kind of teammate you are, right? We're all good teammates today, right? We just had a good breakfast. We got coffee. We're having a good time, right? I mean, we're all good teammates. Everybody's going to be good today. Are you going to be a good teammate on Tuesday when nobody can see you, when we're not around one another? Are we going to be good teammates to one another? And when we face that adversity, you know, for our family, we faced some adversity 2 years ago. I mentioned Gunnar, our oldest son. He was sick and losing weight and just wasn't himself, and we found out he had type 1 diabetes. And at first, and there may be some of you in the room that have it, or that have children that have it, and at first I was just, much like the time when I tore up my own knee, it said, "This is for your own son." I was just like, you know, I was so upset. And I remember taking him to Children's Hospital, and all these things are going in him, and they're getting him back to life, really. I mean, no, his blood sugar was 700 when we got in there. And so you think, you know, you see him so sick. But then I walk out of the hospital, you know, Tiffany and I are trading out or whatever, and you see other children that may not leave the hospital. And you see moms and dads that are willing them in there, or they're sick, or they've been there for months. And so, you know, for me, I went from down in the dumps to an overwhelming thankfulness that he'll be all right. And, you know, it isn't my cross, but it's our cross, and it's really his cross to carry. But we have to carry our cross. Jesus carried it with the weight of the world on his shoulders, with all of our sins. And we have to be able to pick up the cross and carry it. And for Gunnar, it may be carrying that with him forever. And for our family right now, it's tough. There's some tough days, but you know, if you think, this is too much, and you start sawing off pieces of the cross you're carrying, and then when you get to the big ravine, you can't lay down that cross to make it over, you know, and so God will meet you there with the grace to handle it. You just pick it up and carry on and carry forward, and God will meet you there with the grace to handle it. It reminds me of this verse, this reading. It was in the readings a few weeks ago. Some of you may remember it was in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, 16 through 19. It says, "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in all circumstances give thanks, for this is the will of God for you in Christ Jesus, and do not quench the spirit." Our pastor back home said, you know, rejoice always. He said, and then I think the next three things are the secrets to being able to rejoice always. Pray without ceasing, be thankful in every circumstance, and don't quench the spirit. And that's it right there. That reading right there is really, to me, that's part of the Nuke Cheppy. You know, stick to those three things, begin again every day, and keep going no matter what comes your way. We had a coach that always talks about when you start talking about the crosses and the problems we all have, and we all have different ones, some greater than others. He would always say, hey, look, if we could take all our problems right now, all of you, and put them in a big pile up here, and we could all see everybody's problems, that you'd probably just want to take yours back. And it's so true. It's so true a lot of times, because what may seem like an awful cross for someone to have to bear, in my eyes, they may say, no, I can't handle it, you know, and they may think, so it's like I said, Jesus carried the cross with the weight of the world on his shoulders, and so whatever crosses we have, let's embrace them. And I'm not saying they're not hard. I'm not saying you don't struggle, but embrace them and carry them. And the way you do that, and you overcome adversity, and you can embrace the crosses we have, is, in a football reference, stick to the game plan. You got to stick to the game plan. We have the one holy Catholic Apostolic Church. We have all the scriptures. We have the catechism. We have the sacraments. We have the sacraments. Confession and the Eucharist. You know, confession, and I encourage you, our family, we try to go once a month. And get in, and if you feel like you repeat yourself a lot in confession, if you're confessing the same sins, because I feel that way quite often, keep confessing them. Keep confessing them, and God will give you the grace to overcome them. God will keep humbling yourself in the confessional, and obviously then keep trying to avoid those sins. But confession and the Eucharist strengthens us. It strengthens us. The sacraments gives you the strength. You know, Sundays for me there's nothing better. Sometimes I go Saturday night, but waking up Sunday morning, going to Mass, receiving Jesus in the Eucharist, and then driving into Qualcomm Stadium or wherever we are to play a football game that's about as good as they can get for me. It doesn't get much better than that. I get to do the thing most important and receive Jesus, and then I get to go play my favorite game. It's awesome. And then adoration. When I was in college, I couldn't even told you what adoration was. And it's just so powerful and so peaceful. And Jesus is there in the tabernacle, there waiting for us to be close with him, to sit with him. You know, Jesus didn't write a book. He taught his apostles. He infused them with the Holy Spirit, and he told them to go make converts of the world. And there's no excuses. We should have no excuses as Catholic men. People want to be led. Families want to be led. And we're called to do it. You know, there's a stat that, if any of you know Mike Sweeney, who played baseball many years, all-star, great player of Kansas City Royals and a couple other teams. He's good friends of ours in San Diego. And we spoke together at a conference, and he ran across this stat, and I want to share it with you here. And just think about how much how important we are as men in our families, as dads. If a father does not go to church, no matter how faithful his wife's devotions, only one child in 50 will become a regular worshiper. If the father does go regularly, regardless of the practice of the mother, between 2/3 and 3/4 of their children will become faithful churchgoers. So, I mean, we're the problem, man, and we're the solution. We're the problem and the solution. Our wives are awesome. We know their role as mother. They have the greatest mother in Mary, Queen of Heaven, as an example, and they're awesome. But the men need to lead. The dads have to step up. And if we do that, our families and our children, as the numbers say, will grow up to be faithful worshipers. So imagine the angel Gabriel visiting you today and asking you to become a priest, to start attending daily Mass, to begin praying the rosary on a daily basis, to speak about Christ more boldly, to read the Bible more frequently, to contribute a great amount of your treasure to charity, to forgive and pray for that person that wronged you, to discontinue to live your life with secret sins, to go to the sacrament of reconciliation and give an honest confession. Imagine the angel Gabriel visiting you and asking you any of those things today. Would your answer be, may it be done to me according to your word? Or would it be a series of questions or excuses? You know, there's a song, children's song, many of you may know, that I love, that kind of says, I want to say yes, just like Mary did. And that's what this question is. Are you going to say yes like Mary did, or are we going to come up with a bunch of excuses? We all have before. I know I have. We all have. But if just picture that today. So if you're feeling called to start your family prayer, to attend daily Mass, and you feel it in your heart, it's God calling you, and you can do it. And when you miss a day, Nunc Chepi. It doesn't mean I'll forget it. I'll do it. I'll start again next week. No, start right now. Let's start right now. St. Ignatius spoke about 3 classes of men. And I'm paraphrasing these so it's simple form that I could understand. 3 classes of men. First class of man knows what to do, knows what he should do, but it's too much and he's not willing. I can't do that. There's too Too many rules, too many things I have to do in this church. That's too much. I'm out. The second class of man is willing to an extent, and he kind of tricks himself. So he's, yeah, okay, I won't do this and this, but I'll cheat here, or I'll do that, or I'll do this. It's kind of half on the fence. I'm not all the way in, but I trick myself to believe I'm doing right. And then the third class of man is willing to do all it is to rid himself of any vice he may have, any sin he has, and to strive towards Jesus every single day and to live our faith. Go all the way out. In Galatians 6:9, it's one of my favorite verses. It says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for if we do not give up at the proper time, we will reap our harvest." And that's it. Let us not become tired of doing good, tired of doing the right things, tired of living out our faith. And if we become tired, if we do stumble and fall, get back up. Untitled Chapter. I keep saying that because it's so dear to me. And it applies in everything we do, everything. Now you begin. You begin right now. You messed up 5 minutes ago. Well, start right now. It's never too late. You've never sinned too much. You've never fallen too far away. Today's the day. And everything matters. You have to believe that everything matters. We're in a society and in a world that we just say, well, whatever, like I said earlier. But everything matters. Everything you do matters. Everything you do matters. Peter, St. Peter, maybe the closest to Jesus of any of the apostles. And in the first 9 lines of Peter, when he put pen to paper, he said this in line 9. In line 9, as he's getting started, this is what he said in the 9th line. The goal of our faith is the salvation of our soul. And that sums it up. That's why you are all here today. That's why I'm here today. It's because the goal of our faith is the salvation of our soul. I don't have all the answers. None of us have it all figured out. We're all sinners. And we all need the sacraments. We all need each other. We all need help. And we got to continue to work together. And the answer is in Jesus and in the church. That's where the answer is. The goal of our faith is the salvation of our soul. So like I said at the very beginning, our job is to get to heaven and to bring as many people with us as we can. And it's awesome seeing how many of you are here. I'm thankful to be a part of it, really. I'm just a part of it. I'm just one of you that's here that's trying to grow in his faith. And the goal of our faith is the salvation of our soul. And let's get to heaven and bring as many people as we can with us. And let's be the man that in the morning, when your feet hit the floor, when you wake up, that the devil's mad at you. The devil's mad at you. He's like, he's awake. He's awake again, fighting for the Lord. God bless you.